Welcome to the Wrestling Chatter YouTube channel. This is Xtreme Memories. I am your host, Kris Kloss. New episodes of Xtreme Memories, as you know by now, on the 15th and the 30th of every single month. If you haven't done so, like, share, comment, and subscribe to the Wrestling Chatter YouTube channel. Now, folks, this is the one that I think everybody has been waiting for. We finally got him. The CEO, the chairman of Extreme Pro Wrestling, Rob Black. Exclusive right here. I finally get to sit down with this guy. What more can I say? We're going to talk about everything. The start of XPW, backstage, adult film industry, everything Rob Black was involved with. Controversial indeed. And of course, if you guys are watching this prior to April 9th, 2022, we're going to talk about the relaunch of XPW. Some say XPW 3.0. Of course, April 9th, the big event in Pomona, as XPW brings back the King of the Deathmatch tournament. We're going to talk a lot about that and the whole history, the whole gamut of XPW. My name is Kris Kloss. This is Xtreme Memories on the Wrestling Chatter YouTube channel. What more can I say? Enjoy. Well, this is a doozy. Rob Black, welcome to the Wrestling Chatter. Welcome to Xtreme Memories. Long time no see, but that's not totally true. But how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Christopher Kloss. Now you got the now you landed the big fish. Now your little Extreme Memories is complete. Now you're there. There it is. It's done.
Well, this is definitely you've been of course pretty much number one on the list of people wanting to see you on the show. So we thank you. And but let's kick it off, Rob. We'll go into you and our history together. But first, I want to ask you, going back to little Robert Black, right? When were you a wrestling fan growing up, and how did you start like wrestling?
No, I wasn't a wrestling fan.
Oh, come on, the Huss.
I wasn't a wrestling fan. No. What else? Next question.
No, come on, man. Like, I mean, how old were you when you got did you get the bug? Like, hey, man, I get this business. I understand it. When did you know that?
When I was a friend of mine said, hey, do you want to go to this wrestling show in Anaheim? And I was like, okay. I've never been to a wrestling show before. I don't know anything about it. So he brought me to the wrestling show. And then I saw a flyer and I was like, wow, this is cool. And that's how I got into wrestling.
So wait, okay. So can you explain, do you remember? Yeah, right. Can you, all right. So let's forward then, if you don't want to.
What I don't know. I was 10 years old. I was 8 years old. Wrestling I ever saw was, at the time, Georgia Championship Wrestling. That's what I watched on TBS at 6:05. Not 6, 6:05.
6:05, yeah.
And I got turned on to it by a kid that in my neighborhood that was 3 years older than me. He knew I watched WWF at the time. And he was like, you got to watch the real stuff. And I was like, what's the real stuff? And he goes, Georgia Championship Wrestling. And then I watched it and I was like, oh my God, this is real. Yeah. Oh my God. And then he turned me on to, or not Mid-South, Southwest. That was on Sunday mornings on USA Network. Southwest with Bob Sweetan and Tully Blanchard and Eric Embry and who are other guys that were on there. So that was my introduction, but I was always a WWF fan. And I went to 3 WrestleManias in a row. So I went to both the ones in Atlantic City.
Oh, wow.
And I went to the one in Skydome.
Wow. I don't know if I ever remember hearing that from you. I think I would have remembered that I would have been a little Kris Kloss markout mode, if I remember hearing that from you back in the day. I don't think I remember that.
You don't remember it, but I had talked about it.
Interesting. Okay, I that's what I'm saying. I maybe wasn't there that day because I would have remembered that, dude.
You weren't there that day. That was just random.
Hey, so can you talk about, Rob? Like, do you remember the details of when you went to the story was, we talked about this before, SECW. You're of course your number one favorite league of all time, SECW. Was handing out flyers at the Arrowhead Pond for a WWE house show, WWF. Do you remember the story? Who gave you the flyer? Do you remember any of that?
Nobody gave me the flyer. It was on a car.
Ah, okay.
So it was on the car that we were driving. And so when we got to the car, those little black and white shitty flyers were on the window, and I wasn't driving. I was actually, in the back seat on the trip. So they gave me the flyer, or I don't know how the evolution of pulling the shitty flyer off the car and then reading it the entire way home. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off in my head going, that's how I do a wrestling company.
Yeah.
That's how I do it. Because prior to that, I had no idea, how do you get wrestlers? Like, how do you do that? When the idea came into my head, because remember, I had already been doing the ECW thing at that time. I was already, with Bubba. I was already getting Jasmine involved or trying to get Jasmine involved. That relationship was already there.
Yeah.
And I had always thought, well, if I wanted to do this, how do I do it? Yeah. This is again pre an indie fed on every block, and every asshole who wants to be a wrestler can be a wrestler. That it was hard to get into the wrestling business, just like it was hard to get into the porn business. Now anybody could be and anybody could be a wrestler.
Did you experience? So did you go? You went to that SECW show, right?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. You just contacted Kevin, and what was, before we get into Kevin? Can you talk a little bit about your relationship? Because this is fascinating. Your relationship with Paul Heyman. Because for those of you that knew you personally and Paul, it's like this was a kind of a interesting business relationship. But at the same time, if you don't mind me saying, you guys almost had too much of a similar giant personalities that, in my opinion, it was only going to clash. It's only time. I don't know. Is that kind of how you saw it, or no?
Well, no, because I wasn't. The goal wasn't to be. The goal wasn't to be a wrestling promoter. The goal wasn't to own a wrestling company. Yet, to be involved, so that, and I've told this story countless times on my program, and I think I told it to somebody else maybe a year ago. The goal at the time was to win the crossover award. In porn, it was a crossover award. And what that was the adult company that made mainstream headlines. So AVN created an award that videos that crossed from being porn into the mainstream world. And Wicked had won that because they had girls that were on Howard Stern show, and they were in the Howard Stern movies, and they were covered in various magazines. They transcended the concept of just some studio into the original goal was to get the crossover award, because along with the crossover award, then you could leverage that with distributors and say to them, oh, you got to take more of my product because we were featured in People magazine or whatever the hell it was.
Okay.
So this was my way to get that crossover award. So it never, and of course, make money. It was never to own a wrestling company. The owning of the wrestling company was kind of like a market that eventually came to fruition because I wanted to get back at Paul Heyman because I perceived being fucked over. Right. So then it was, oh, well, this is what I'm going to do to go after you and to fuck you and win the crossover award, make lots of money, and, have a good time. So it was a lot deeper than just, the company. And I'm going to have guys wrestle barefoot so I could watch them rub each other's feet like Vern Langdon there, whatever his name is.
I can't explain that either to this day, man. It makes no sense. But if you guys fans want to watch some weird, look, Slammers wrestling was what it was. But yeah, there was a foot fetish thing going on there. I don't know, but it's there. And
every wrestler had to wrestle in trunks, and they had to wrestle barefoot.
Yeah, and then they started biting each other's feet and whatever. It was weird. I know. It made I don't know. Vern Langdon, the great Vern Langdon, rest in peace. So Rob, let me ask you this. So okay, you talk about where you were business wise. Interesting. What was now that was set? You got the flyer. You talked to Kevin. What was the first step? Your first step before anything happened. The first step in the creation of XPW. What had to start unfolding?
Well, okay. Well, I mean, you're kind of, so when I called Kevin, so the idea was to buy a wrestling company. Okay. I didn't know ex-ECW was run by Kevin and Patrick. Remember, we're all roughly the same age. So when I say kids, anybody that's younger than me, I consider a kid. But we're all around the same age. I'm 48. Yeah. Patrick's 50. Patrick's actually 2 years older than me. Dynamite D, I don't remember, how old he was, but Kevin was only a couple years younger. I think Kevin's 45, 45 to 46.
You and I are 3 years apart. I'm 45, and I want to say Kevin's 1 year younger than me. So there you go.
Yeah. And I know Patrick's 50 because me and Pat were talking on my show a week ago, and he said, yeah, I'm 50. I was like, get out of here, bro. He's like, yeah, wow. I'm 50. I was like, you're older than me. I was like, all right, whatever. So I didn't expect them to show up. So when they showed up at Fridays, and I was just like, okay. And Kevin assumed that he was talking to some guy with money that wanted to give them, hundreds of thousands of dollars to bankroll ex-ECW.
Right.
So he's his little portfolio with, this is what we expect to generate in revenue. This is what we expect. This is who we expect to be our champion. This is the wrestlers. And I remember just looking at it going, this is the drizzle and shits. This is horrible. This is everything that I envisioned indie, wrestling to be.
Right.
And so it basically turned into, well, I'll buy the ring, and I'll buy the concept of who you guys are, but we're going to call it something else, and you're going to come and work for me. And you two guys, and Dee and Patrick had, real jobs by then, like they were working. Kevin was the one that was still in school.
Yeah.
So
he finished school. He finished school that first year.
he was still at UCLA. I'll give you a couple $100 a week. It was like, what? Okay. So he would come after school and start to develop these ideas, and then I would go, that sucks, they suck, and oh, by the way, I need you to help me do some of this stuff. And it was porn, and I'm like, I need you to take care of this, and I need you to take care of that, and I need you to do this. And that's how it evolved. And some ideas are good, some ideas were shit, some were all right, and that's how it blossomed into what it became.
Why the name XPW? Do you remember who?
Well, it was it was a double fold. So it was us sitting around throwing out ideas. Blank pro wrestling. Okay, ECW. Extreme Championship Wrestling. Okay, you got to have something with wrestling. You got to have something with pro. You got to have, okay. So at the time, Kevin brought in Sheldon Goldberg.
Ah, that's right. That's right. The fellow member of the tribe.
So throughout the years, you hear the stories of Sheldon being part of that whole NWA kind of shakedown racket, where it was like, you could use the name, you'll be NWA SoCal, you could be NWA Rochester, NWA Rochester up here. So all these people have various stories of Sheldon Goldberg. So of course, Kevin's like, I want to bring in Sheldon Goldberg, and I want him to, okay, what does he do? Well, he's, this consultant, and he's worked for this guy, he's worked for that. And my number one question is always, well, what are they doing now? And listen, if somebody says to you, Chris, hey, I got this great auctioneer that you're going to talk, he's the best in the business, he's worked for this guy. Well, now, nothing.
Right.
Well, if he's so fucking good, why is he not working for the greatest auction house in the world?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So the whole concept of, why isn't he working for the WWE? Why isn't he working for WCW? Why isn't he? Because remember, at the time, Ferreira, Ed, was working for W. So that was somebody that was part of that Slammers actually working for the WWE. He was actually making money. So it wasn't like Kevin was bringing in Ed Ferrara to moonlight on the side to consult with us. He was like, I'm going to bring this guy in who isn't drawing money, as the boys would say. So he comes in, and it's basically a job interview, so to speak, to again, say he's a money mark, but here's Kevin creating a company and then reaching out to other guys that then see him as somebody that's latching on to a money mark. And then Kevin can be manipulated because Kevin's this kid that's got SCCW. He's running shows with fucking Yokozuna, and him and Patrick and them are like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing in the world. They're coming on themselves because they got fuck Yokozuna. You've got this whole dynamic, and there's Sheldon Goldberg just sitting in front of me going, yeah, and you should do it this way, and you should do it that way, and this and that. So then the name comes up, and it's like we're kicking around names. And whatever, MPW, this and that. And Sheldon goes, what about XPW? Huh. I go, what does it mean though? What's the fucking X? What? And he goes, well, like the X, it's just the X Factor. And I'm like, the X Factor? What the fuck does that mean? And he goes, well, really, you could play off the fact that, you're a porn company, X-rated, but you don't have to say you're X-rated. It's like X, And I'm like, okay. Huh. All right. And so I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
That's idea. I'm like, all right. So it was XPW. What does the X mean? It's the X Factor. Or it's Wrestling Society X. Oh, the most original concept created by, a bunch of XPW alumni.
We were gonna. I've not forgotten that. I was gonna get into that, but yes,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, Wrestling Society X. It's just X. Oh, kind of like XPW. Ah, okay, I get it. All right. Wow. Very original.
Yeah.
Who's your announcer? Oh, the guy from XPW. Very original. Oh, who's the guy? Oh, Smiley. Oh, Kevin Kleinrock. Oh, Cody Michaels. Oh, Chaos. Wow. Who's your tape distribution? Big Vision Wow, this seems like XPW, except without Rob Black and a different name. Right. Oh, wow. Very original, guys. Awesome. All right. We can get back to that later.
It's true. And can I ask you this?
It's the referee. Oh,
yeah, both referees. But you
guys have explosions. Who's the explosion guy? Hutch. Oh, the guy that did all right.
We can keep going. You're right, though. You have a good point. Office days, the first days, Rob, when we were, because you
wait a minute. So with that being said, and I've never shied away from that. I've said very kind of X story. Like I listen. I take credit for things that were done. I take credit for things that were not done. I take credit for things that were bad. I give credit where they're deserved. I don't sit there and go, oh, yeah, XPW, I just sat around and just like that, I've always told the story of Sheldon Goldberg because that was like the only thing that came out of that meeting with Sheldon. He left, and I remember him leaving, and then, the doors are shut and everything, and Kevin, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing, man? I go, that was like just complete bullshit. Whack. And I'm like, dude, we're going to pay this guy thousands of dollars to do what?
Mm-hmm.
I go, what's he going to do? I go, we got tape we've got
everything.
What's he gonna do? He doesn't. What's he know, bro? I go, he ain't working for nobody. That he don't know that much. But I like XPW.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, and that's interesting. I never knew the concept of kind of indirectly linking it to the porn side with the X. Fascinating stuff. And you're right. We had everything. You basically had a Hollywood studio. I mean, it was, people say, oh, it was porn. It was in the Valley. Look, at the end of the day, you got the edit bay, you got the cameras, you got everything. It was a studio. And no matter if you're filming kiddie shows or porn, it is a studio. So many advantages we had going into promoting a wrestling company. How did you do it, Rob? Really quick too. The first days where we started meeting prior to the first show, do you remember? Because you reminded me with Sheldon how he kind of said, "Oh, you should do this. You should do." I remember the first days just coming into the office, not knowing. We just knew of what's going on. All these SECW, UIWA guys, right? The basically the two leagues, but it was really SECW that with XPW. But you did not. Do you remember this, Rob? You did not let us know who you were when all of us kind of got there. You were just kind of walking through the office. And I remember off to the side, because you didn't say anything that day. But later that day when I was leaving with Kevin, I'm like, so how come Rob didn't introduce himself? And Kevin's like, dude, he didn't want you guys to know who he was. He wanted to hear what was around him. And basically what he was saying, that you wanted to hear what everyone said without them knowing you were the boss. Do you remember that? And you had a lot of armchair quarterbacks before the meeting kind of putting their feet up saying, you know, wrestling should be this way or that way. And all those guys were eliminated. And look, dude, the shorts, the dreads, the Metallica shirt, we didn't know that you were just walking through the office, had no clue that this guy was the boss. You look like you didn't look like the business guy in the suit. You look like a guy, real dude, just being himself. And so, do you remember that kind of walking through and surveying the land before you led on to the guys, to the boys, that you were the boss?
No.
You okay?
I could lie and be like, "Yes, I did. That was a strategic thing." No,
I believe you don't remember. That's a whole lead up for nothing there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, can you talk really quick the role? What did Tom Byron? What was his role in XPW in your mind? I know he's your business partner for Extreme Associates.
Byron's role was always just to be Tom Byron, you know. He listened to bitching and moaning. He came up with there really wasn't any role. It's not like porn,
right?
It wasn't like porn where it was like, hey, I got this idea for a new line or this. I need names, because he's like the greatest at names that in the porn world. Editing porn, shooting porn.
Yeah.
But in the wrestling, it was. What do you think of this? Oh yeah, that's good. Or what do you think of that? That's kind of, whatever. Okay, well, there you go. I mean, that was it, really.
Okay, all right. And by the way, all of us, by the way, from Xtreme Memories, from the Wrestling Chatter, for all of us here, we want to say congratulations to the new teeth of Tom Byron at this moment in time.
New teeth.
Yeah, new teeth. So now he's got to do the show. So
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, Rob? I mean, I was there. I kind of saw it for what it was firsthand, but maintaining the wrestling side of the business and the adult side of the business all at once, because that was a big undertaking.
What do you want to know?
How did you balance that? You had one business, one office for two entities. Was it hard? Was it difficult when the wrestling started? Because the porn was the cash cow, was the prime product, was the A product, and that couldn't be compromised, correct, for the wrestling?
No, and and I kind of laugh at listening to a lot of people who have come on your show or they've done other shows, and where they have of what we did that really wasn't there, in the sense that there really wasn't that much crossover. there wasn't that much. Oh, we're gonna come into the office and cut promos. Oh, by the way, here's people fucking right in front of us, and there was. I mean, if you came during the day and you happen to go in the warehouse somewhere, you might run into a scene being shot.
Right.
But we shot XPW, as you would know, mainly at 12 o'clock at night. There wasn't a goddamn... And I mean, it was dark. It was relatively a small amount of people involved when we shot promos. So this weird illusion that you'll hear from, you know, people, what's going on and that's going. It's like, no, you know, somebody might see something one time and that becomes every time they go to the office, every time they're there. So the balance basically was XPW at night, porn during the day. And that was kind of like our rule.
Yeah, and really at the end of the day, when the wrestling started at night, you're right. It was like everyone had already clocked out. The day was done for porn. It was done. You're right. But like you said, there were times here and there where it happened. But yeah, it's this folklore of like this like mini Playboy mansion every day. Like, no, I wasn't, you know.
Yeah. Unless we intended it to be like that. It wasn't, you know, unless we were like, all right, we're doing a spot where we got Playboy Buddy Rose and we need to get girls to get in the hot tub with things like that. But for the most part, this, you know, this concept of it being some Sodom and Gomorrah was not the case. Like I said, at 5 o'clock and like an unwritten rule that I had with myself and I had with John Blatt, because John Blatt at the time was the sales manager and the general manager.
Right.
So Kevin was like a general manager, but John was above him. So John was the one that would say to me, hey man, we need to focus on fucking porn or we're not going to have money. And it was John that was like, you got to fucking do wrestling after hours when everybody leaves. And then, you know, you could focus on, you know, porn during the day. And that's kind of like what we did. It was that mix.
And it really was, you could not disrupt the core product, which was the porn. And that was totally understandable. What was the pyramid then? If you want to, with the hierarchy, not the hierarchy, Damien Seal, but the hierarchy with the leadership. So you were obviously the CEO, the chairman. How did it rank with you, Tommy, Kevin, John Blatt? What was the order really?
Well, I mean, Blatt, you know, Blatt was that kind of voice of reason. Yeah. And even though, you know, he was a little wacky at times, but he was that kind of the money. And you know, if it didn't make dollars, it didn't make sense, to coin the Smiley GQ money phrase. Yeah. So he was the one that if I said, well, I want to do this, he would say, you know, it's not possible. Or, you know, if we want to embark on this journey, or, hey, do you know this person, or can you hook us up with this tape distribution? So like our first tape distribution was through John. John hooked us up with Gold Hill. So RE and Sam Goodies and all that was John Blatt's doing. That was John putting that together.
Now, very important right there, because going into our first show, so everything is already set. The porn Extreme Associates, and look, man, to explain this, especially to young people, it was a different world for wrestling and for adult entertainment, especially adult entertainment. If you ran a adult company, it was nothing like today. It was big money. It was big business, and you were right in that wave, Rob. You were up there in the late '90s, early 2000s, and before, a little before that. But going into the first show now, did you how did that, because I remember we all ex-ECW, we signed disclosure contracts 1 year before our first show. We weren't allowed to talk about any of this a whole year before. So going into Reseda, 1999, July. Now, also talk a little bit about how we promoted, because we had television commercials, albeit locally, Southern California, but it was a big deal. We had television commercials on WWF, on WCW. And man, again, the wrestling world, much different, right? Which we'll get into a little bit when we talk about the relaunch right now of XPW. How, you remember after the first show, you and I were just kind of talking about, it felt so different out there in the ring compared to what it felt like in that era when we were doing this XPW. But the era in wrestling in the 90s, as we all know, is like the Attitude Era was still going on. What did that mean, getting those commercials on, and then leading into the first show? Did you have nerves? What was it like as this grandioso production that we were about to embark on? Because it was a much bigger production than ex-ECW Slammers or any of that, of course.
I had already been doing I guess you could say live things, or being around groups of people and being around a situation where you're putting on a movie or a play or something like that.
Production.
Live action, I guess.
Okay.
So as far as that went, I had already kind of had a taste of producing or trying to create a movie. The wrestling aspect and putting it together, I don't really remember being all that nervous for it for so long. I feel like it was a constant, this is what we're going to do, and that's how we're going to do it. And we went over matches, a lot of those matches, even though some of them were the drizzling shits, a lot of it was pre-planned. Some of those guys worked on their matches in the ring ahead of time.
Right.
Like ahead of time. Things were done in a way that we all knew what was going to happen when we got there. And I think for the first show, it went pretty good. And it's funny because I remember, who did we have? What name did we have? We had Big Dick, right?
Big Dick Dudley, Cronus, and the Pitbulls, I think was.
And I think Missy Hyatt was on the first show.
Yeah, Pitbulls and Cronus, I want to say too. Or Cronus came.
It was like, and I remember we had, table spot, chair spot, blood. And I just remember back then, Dick and the Pitbulls and even Missy Hyatt, even though she hasn't really said nice things about me, we're kind of like, well, what are you going to do in the next match? What are you going to do in the match after. Why? What? Well, because you guys got, all these table spots or all these chair spots in the first 4 matches. Then what about the 5th match? And it's just so funny because now that doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Now in wrestling, every match is some ridiculous high spot match. Everybody kicks out of every hold, everything. So the old school wrestling of like, all right, so this is going to be a chair spot, and you're going to work the arm in that match. All right, well, I'll make sure I don't work the arm, and I'll work the leg, and okay, you're going to have blood. All right, well, now we can't do blood. And I just remember after that show listening to Dick and listening to Missy and listening to Pitbulls, and just that kind of, well, you can't do all of this stuff the way we did it. And that was different. And I remember going into the next show, I was kind of like, I knew it all then. Now it was like, well, we can't do this, and we can't do that, we can't do this, and we can't. But all it took was listening to people that had done it for all these years going, I understand now. Because Kevin and them had no fucking idea. Kevin had no idea how to properly put together a card and how to, okay, we can't have blood here and we can't do this or we can do that. And if this person is using a DDT as a finisher, you can't have the person before him use a DDT and have this guy kick out of it. You can't. Didn't know any of that stuff. Right. So it was kind of like a on-job training, so to speak, because the business,
a work in progress, really.
Well, yeah, because remember the business was different, so there was no podcasts, Facebooks. There was no people giving their wrestling knowledge on a daily basis. Like right now, you literally, if you have no idea how to properly put together a match or how to run a wrestling company, you could go on YouTube and basically get a seminar from people like Jim Cornette, from people like, you could take the fucking owners to the purest of purest owners to even a Tony Khan. And you literally, in a span of a week, could figure out how to put together a card that would appease today's wrestling fan.
You're right. And
it wasn't the case back in the 90s. It was, what do you do? So when the Pitbulls go, well, you can't do that. Well, why? Because you can't. Well, why not? Well, because XYZ. You didn't get that information from anybody. That was information that people like Paul Heyman got from being a fucking ring guy or a little photographer back in the WWF days and hanging out with the Grand Wizard and shit like that. That was very guarded. So that knowledge you couldn't get back then. You had to get somebody to share that with you, and it was tough. So, a work in progress, like you said. So I wasn't like, oh my God. I was like, I know what I'm doing, but I didn't know what I was doing. And the first shows were drastically different than 6 shows in. Things were different.
Yeah, way different. That first year, basically, 99 was the feeling out year. And then really by the time, so that was July 99, we had a show basically every month in LA / Reseda, Bakersfield, Ventura, all that. We did that little roundabout tour and San Bernardino. But then once we got to the year 2000, in April was when we got TV, America One, KGLA and all that. And luckily in my opinion, that kind of unfolded that way with that timeline, because it was good that we didn't have TV right away. We did the home videos, but we could dress that up and cover our asses a little bit with the home videos. But we became a little bit more polished in 2000, but not nearly. In my opinion, is I think once 01, 02, 03, we were starting to really run on all cylinders at that point.
Yeah, and even changing the roster. Listen, I was big on, and I still am, and I kind of run into issues with people now when I'm booking shows. Is I don't like okay, so back then we call indie wrestlers, and they were really fucking bad. They were bad, man. But that was indie product, and I was really big on like we got to get rid of these guys. They're they don't look like wrestlers. I was always big on, if you didn't look like a wrestler, you had to have a gimmick that justified you not looking like a wrestler. And in my mind, because you're going back in the 90s, Hogan, Savage, Lex Luger, Sid Vicious, those were wrestlers.
Yeah.
They weren't, and if you didn't look like that, you had to look, there had to be a gimmick. So you had to be a Vader, or you had to be a Bam Bam Bigelow. There had to be, it wasn't just some guy that looked like he was bagging groceries at fucking Vaughn's, and now he's stepping into the ring. And when we first started, we had a lot of guys like that. Yeah, man, I remember. Well, I mean, goddamn, and he was a nice kid. But remember Phenomenal Phil? Man, I mean, on top of the fact that he was 5'0", every fucking match he did, he blew a spot bad. Like, he was just horrible. And I'll never forget, just like, dude, like, come on, man. But Pancho Killa. Remember Pancho Killa?
Yeah, Samoan kid.
I mean, so I think I've carried some of that on even today. So when somebody suggests somebody to me, I go, ugh, dude, they just, and the business is different now. So you get somebody that's 5'1" that can do flippy shit, and they're a big deal. So it's just a different world, I guess you could say.
All the exposure. So you're right. Like when we say nerves leading up to the first show, there was just so much going on that we almost didn't have time to be nervous. There was just putting the pieces together. But I do remember, Rob, like, because I'd done all that indie stuff, like you said, prior to XPW. So I was used to going out there, but it was different when in XPW. I felt that first show, that second show, and I'll see if you remember this, Rob, is one of my first chew outs I received from you, but was the second show. But the vibe, the feel for that first show lined up all around Sherman Way. I mean, there were a lot of people, over 1,000 people there, just like that. Wrestling was big too at the time. We had that advantage of starting out at that era. I'll say, I'll be fair, but we did a lot to attract people to our product, to look enough like we had our own identity. We weren't just which look, we get a lot of crap for being an offshoot ECW, which we'll get to, Rob. But we branded our own identity, definitely in Southern California, as compared to all this stuff out here. But going into that first show was a different vibe. You had guys from all over the wrestling industry, like Jesse Hernandez and Bill Anderson, and all these other people that weren't involved, that came to that show, that wanted to see what was going on. It was, you could feel it was a big deal. And the second show, Rob, just to kind of like, I don't know if you remember this, but my cue, I came out, welcome everybody to the show, and I had the belt because we were going to crown the champion. And I guess I missed a cue. I missed one of the lines to cue the music. And so I was sitting out there blank. And that was the first and last time where it's like, okay, I can't do that anymore. I got to improvise when I'm out here. Big time feel. ex-ECW, we could, all right, we screw up, big deal, right? So that was the first time I'm like, okay, this is, I know it's a bigger deal, but now I'm feeling it firsthand. And I don't know if you remember, but when I came back into the curtain, you were sitting waiting for me. God damn it, Kloss, what the fuck? You can't be out there when the camera's on you. You can't be silent. What is this mute stuff? God damn it. I'm like, okay, sorry. And you know, with the headphones, you went back over. Cause look, you needed to be that way. This was your company and you had to get everybody in line. But I did go back up to the Tony T and the XPW radio we were doing. And Tony T's like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm fired. I think this is my last show. You know, but that was what I needed to hear to.
Why did you pause? What happened?
It was it maybe my fault or the music didn't come on when it was supposed to come on. I was supposed to get interrupted by the music. The hierarchy was going to come out and do their spiel. And it was a lull between my line and the music. And that's when we were like, hey, if that happens, you improvise. You improvise. You're out there. You know what's going on the storyline. Talk about it then, you know? And I remember that, again, that was like the last time that ever happened. And I, improvised. But I remember you chewing me out and I go up to Tony T like, yeah, I think I'm fired. I think this is it. I think I'm my last show, you know? But because that's how I felt. And I was, oh shit, this is a big deal. I can't,
who fucked that up?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So
who was the music man?
What might have been my line or the music man, whatever. But
no, but who fucked up the music? Who's the person that worked the music?
I don't know.
Bro,
I don't know.
Klein Rock was the music guy.
Yeah. Okay. But either way, my point is,
I'm just saying, Kloss. People, people that are privy to your show, Klein Rock did all the music.
Right.
We didn't have a music. 2 times Kevin tried to give it to somebody else, and they fucked up. And I haven't to a point where, there was probably more than one occasion that I got him to tear up, and I was like, "You cannot not do music. Music is the most important thing in a wrestling show.
Yeah.
It is everything in a wrestling show. You cannot give it to whoever." And from those 2, and it was twice. And from those point forward, for 4 years, Kevin is the one who always did that was it. Kevin did the music because it was so important. And if you remember our shows, because again, back in the 90s, that's how wrestling was. It was all about the music. Everything was about the music. Music cues for WCW, ECW, WWE. It was all music cues. Music cue for somebody to come out, whether it was making a save or making a surprise. Everything was about that music cue. The lights going off, pitch black, music, boom, music was off. You fucked up the entire spot. That's how it was.
That was the part where we come out and really realize what this all is, this wrestling business. It is a show. It is a demonstration. It is a display. It is a show. If you screw up the lines, the music, the lighting in a Broadway show or whatever, that's it. You stopped the audience from suspension of disbelief. Now you just ruined it. And you talk about pro wrestling. Oh yeah, it's a show, but it's also looked at as a sport. No, it's a show, and it has to be done right. My point right there, Rob, was whether it was my fault or Kevin's, you chewed him out, you chewed me out, because no matter whose fault it was, okay, when something fucks up, we have to step up and make it work and make it make sense. when all things don't always go right, you know. But no, I don't know if you remember that, but that was
I don't remember that.
All right, okay. So let me ask you this: all the exposure. Oh, what was your feeling after the first show ended? What do you remember that? Like, okay, what was the feel? What was the vibe like? Were we on to something? Tweaking stuff? Feel good or overall?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. It's funny because I were we don't have to do the stuff that we did. So that was really one of the main takeaways. So we printed up programs. Why? I have no idea, but it cost us,
Oh,
thousands of dollars to do programs. Um, backstage pass. I mean, we just did a lot of stuff that we eventually didn't do anymore. Definitely being, satisfied, happy, whatever you want to call it, that the show is over. The fact that a couple hundred people would show up, that was always positive. But my vision was for us to not look. I always wanted to look like the big leagues.
yeah.
Yes, it didn't look like WWE, but I always prided myself on the fact that we didn't look like 80% of the other indies out there.
Okay.
So I know we didn't look like the WWE, and I know we still look fucking chintzy at times, indie, but I at least was never satisfied with looking indie, and I always wanted us to try to look better. Like I remember I was big on our set.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I was always like, we can't just have a fucking trussing with a banner.
Yeah.
And it was like the big X's. Remember I remember the one X we had, and I don't know if it was Ralph that built it, but it weighed like 700 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember when it almost hit the West Siders in Ventura when it came crumbling down? Not that sports arena, but the Ventura show when it hit the ring.
It was the Ventura show with the Pitbulls and the West Side.
Yes.
Blank. You can't say what they what their full names were. But
we can't, but they can.
Yeah, they can. We can't. But I remember every time we'd have to move that X, everybody would just be like, fuck. Because we'd have to get a trailer, and then we'd have to load up the X. So, but I was like, dude, it's awesome. We have a giant X covered in, and then that went to, we can make it out of, like, not plywood, but like a more of a parchment wood.
Yeah.
And then we made
like it was basically cork board. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So after we almost killed the Pitbulls, the rule of thumb was don't brawl near the over and kill somebody. Then when we switched to the X that was like corkboard, and you had the X on top, and then it was don't fuck with the X because it could collapse and then you could break it. So it was always like, all right, you guys, you can rest, you could go to the crowd here, you could do, but stay away from the fucking X.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when we did the show in the sports arena.
Yep.
And Sabu they're brawling all over the arena, and they already had instructions that they couldn't go into the crowd or we'd get in trouble. And then the second instruction was, don't go near the fucking set.
Yeah.
And they brawled on in the arena. They brawled on the stage. And then they went over to the set and fucking knocked the entire goddamn set down. And I remember in the headphones, I'm screaming at Pat set. Pat, tell me to get away from the fucking set. Pat, they're going to knock the fucking set down. Pat, oh my fucking, they knocked the goddamn set down. And I just remember being so disgusted that Terry Funk and Sabu ripped the fucking set down. I was very upset.
Now, at the time, yeah, and I knew you were going to be upset when we were out there because we knew that wasn't supposed to happen. But in a way, man, that moment became pretty iconic in the kind of the folklore of the league of the extremeness of XPW, because we used that in the opening of the show.
Yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, it ended up looking pretty badass, man. It's like, wow, anything can happen at these shows, and people had what I get people telling me all the time. I'm sure you get it too, which is, I miss that element of danger. I miss that element of like, here I am. Yeah, I'm in the Olympic, I'm in the sports arena, but I'm at an XPW show. And it feels a little kind of unregulated. It feels like the responsible, good people aren't in charge of this. It's like the students are running the asylum kind of vibe, like Lord of the Flies almost. Like it felt like that. But of course, we knew what we were doing, but we were able to put out that element of danger, and you felt it in the fans. They were like, oh, okay, now it's XPW time. I've been to all the safety regulated Arrowhead Pond and Staples Center. Yeah, it's WWF, but now I'm in the jungle here, so to speak. Now and that was what I always address, is like, nobody could take away from us. And I hear it all the time, and people miss, like, you just don't have that anymore, people will say.
Well, and you're not going to ever have that. And it's almost like that's like a conversation that me and you had at Rebirth, where it was like I kept feeling you had this disappointed vibe because you didn't get the feeling 20 years ago. But that feeling is never going to come back because the danger element isn't there anymore. Oh my God, I haven't seen this before. All of that stuff, it's like, it's been there, done it, so you have to kind of create something else. You have to do something else now. And you have to build on that of, oh my God, the inmates are running the asylum. You never get that. Like, you'll never, ever, I don't care what company it is, because every fan is smartened up to wrestling being fake. Every fucking company doesn't hide it anymore. I remember I used to not let the boys hang out together who were good guys and bad guys.
Yeah,
and I used to not let the heels do the stupid autographs at the end and get pissed off at everybody if they were hanging out bullshitting with the fans. And I'd be like, why are you don't fucking do that? Well, you can't get that back, because after every show, no matter what company, I mean, aside from WWE to an extent, but you're getting done with the show, and then the evil head shrinker wrestler is drinking it up with the fans at the local bar. They're doing karaoke. They're doing all this shit So it's hard to ever get that element of danger. Just like back then, remember, Chris, what was the big thing the cool thing to do back then was they're going off script.
Yeah, right.
That was I think that was real.
Yeah,
I think Robin and Supreme were really mad at each other.
Yeah.
Do you think he meant to say you're a cocksucker and your mom's went off script? There's none of that now. Now you can't even fucking have a surprise because the sheets all want to fucking say, oh, The Rock is backstage. Steve Austin's backstage. So-and-so's backstage. It's like now it's a rite of passage for there to be no secrets whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's a part of the industry that, look, a lot of the guys now, like I find that young guys, wrestlers, announcers, referees, that they will kind of watch it and present wrestling like they are two guys watching wrestling. Like they already know the kayfabe, as opposed to our era, we presented it like it was a real sport. Now they are all winking at the audience, and it's like they grew up. They didn't grow up in a time that they remember the kayfabe was alive. They don't remember know that concept, so they're all just presenting it like after the Montreal Screwjob and on era. But actually, I take that back. Montreal Screwjob happened, but kayfabe was still alive because you and I both know the business was still running that way. It really was the internet that killed it. But yeah, you're right. Like we were kind of at the tail end, if you think about it, of that kayfabe era, but it was still alive and well. And you're right. We were on strict rules of what to do and what not to do before, during, or after a show. Once we are on this side of the curtain, I always say, once we're on this side of the curtain, it was cool. I loved the privilege and honor and just the experience of, wow, I'm on this side of the curtain, where there were, not everybody, but there were other guys that were like, oh, I'm on this side of the curtain. Well, I'm going to get to tell them what's really going on because I'm over here like, oh, dude, now you're. And those were the guys I remember. You would weed those guys out, Rob. Yeah. You would see them in back and like, are you kidding me, dude? You're going to try to get over with these people out there, first off, within your company. But just being back there, are we going to not take this serious? Are we going to take this serious or not? And that was what how I can explain my experience from what you're talking about right now. And you're right, at Rebirth 3 XPW, the relaunch, which we're going to get into. You asked me the next morning what I thought, and I was like racking my brain of how to answer that, because subconsciously I realized then, like, oh, you know what? I think I was getting hyped up for this XPW show, subconsciously thinking, finally, it's going to be different than all the stuff today. And of course, reality check. It's the fan base. You're right. You're not going to get that back. Wishful thinking, I guess, on my part. Well,
and Chris, it's like when we were talking about kayfabe, it's like today's wrestler and today's wrestling fan, when they hear us and they make fun of us old people when we talk about this, what they decipher out of it is, trying to tell when everybody knows it's fake. And it's like, no, that's not what the kayfabe is. What it is trying to keep the illusion of what we're doing, right, still the illusion. So, and the best way I discuss this is, everybody knows that a magician David Copperfield doesn't make an airplane disappear. They don't make they know that, right, but they don't tell everybody and show everybody after the trick how it's done, or how it's being done. And it's the same thing with a movie. Yeah. If you watched a movie And during the movie, you saw the actor reading off of a script, or you saw that curtain being lifted, not in the sense where, oh, you saw the camera reflection in the mirror for a second and they left it in on accident. Ha ha, movie flub. Just where the movie, they're like, well, you all know it's fake, so why should we try to make you believe that this is a movie? Like, so everything else, just like a play, everything else where you have to submerge yourself into that that world, everybody else accepts that it's, a movie, and let's try to make it as real as possible. Wrestling is the only thing that falls in that pattern, but everybody kind of gets upset when you're like, dude, can we just kind of pretend to all these fans that, we really don't like each other, or that, after they just saw us beat the hell out of each other, that we're all not out drinking a beer together. Can we do, oh, why? They all know that it's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I know fucking, so-and-so didn't make an elephant disappear. I don't want after the show him to go, come on, everybody gather around. Let me just show you how we did this. Don't you feel stupid?
Yeah, right. Wrestling's the only thing. You're right. And going back to your comment about Kevin getting the music right, can you imagine for a second Siegfried and Roy or David Copperfield in a mass show, but the cues and the lights don't go right? There goes the show. And you can't do that in magic. And just same with wrestling. And wrestling, sports entertainment, right? Well, what falls under the umbrella? 3 things I could think of: professional wrestling, the Harlem Globetrotters, and roller derby, right? So the Harlem Globetrotters, we all know what the Harlem Globetrotters is, but from beginning to end, they are going to present that as a real exhibition, a real basketball game, a real sport. They're not going to, of course we all know about the Globetrotters, but they wouldn't, at the end of the day, they would never cheat the way they produce it or present it to the audience and wink at the audience at all as to, oh, you guys know this is silly fakeness. Nope, this is a real game. And the Globetrotters are the greatest team ever. And the Washington Generals are the most losing team in all of sports,
Yeah.
Yeah, So we were there, Rob. We were there.
So with that being said, you'll never get back you'll never get that feeling back. And you wouldn't have that feeling if we were still doing it after these years. So like, obviously, I'm pretty sure Vince, and when Pat Patterson was alive and when Dusty was alive, those guys, because they evolved with the business throughout the years, never kind of had that feeling of like, because they watched it change. They were part of that change. They were, we kind of we're kind of like Captain America. So XPW prematurely stopped. And it froze in time. That frozen time for all of us. And 20 years later, I came back and went back up, and we're going to pick up from where we left off. So we basically, and if you watch the TV show, you were part of the TV show, there's definitely elements of the TV show that harkens back to what we did 20 years ago. It didn't evolve to where it's just somebody going, and now this match.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And now this match. Rah, rah, rah. Now, we basically went, all right, I got to go and do what we did 20 years ago. Here's this guy with a high-pitched voice, and he's going to go scour this city looking for this tattooed monster named Schlack. And it was a skit. And obviously there was a camera there, but nobody acknowledged it. And that was exactly what we did 20 years ago. Yeah. And it's a little bit of what WWE tries to do every once in a while. But we did, and we are doing XPW as if we didn't take a break for 20 years. So I think there's that element with us that goes, all right, we're doing, but the base that we're playing for is kind of hep and keyed into not being this. And we've got to stick to our guns and go, this is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the deathmatch tournament. There's going to be people that are expecting in the first round for people to basically kill each other. Right. And they're going to get wrestling, and then they're going to get a little death action, and they're going to kind of going on to today. And I'm going to go, but that's what we're going to give you. So just like any other form of entertainment, this is what we're doing. This is what our brand's doing.
Yeah.
If you don't like this brand, go watch another brand.
Right.
If you don't like this comedian who uses cuss words and talks about relationships, then go to this comedian who talks about buying ice cream at a store or talks about raising his kid and his poopy diapers.
Yeah, right.
That type of thing.
Rob, let me go back a little bit here. Can you talk
not,
about,
but you know.
Yeah. All the exposure we were getting at the time. And leading into the year 2000 television, I mean, we were featured on a ton of shows, Entertainment Tonight, Extra. You were doing interviews.
Yeah, but remember a lot of that wasn't for XPW alone. It was because the owner of XPW was running for fucking mayor of Los Angeles.
Yes, I remember that. But I want to go, before we jump to that, that was what, 2001? That was 2001.
Yeah.
So before
when we were on Extra, it was Jesse Ventura could do it.
Yeah.
Rob Black can do it.
That's right.
And that was the tie-in.
And we all a lot of us went out and
canvassed
for signatures for you, man.
Canvassed. Yeah.
Right. That's right. And that was exciting, man. That was very cool. And so before we get into the mayor, all the exposure that XPW got. Now, was it the plan from day one, Rob, to go into the sports arena, to go into the Grand Olympic, or was it kind of like, let's see where we end up, and then we ended up there, or was
no? Yeah, it was. Oh, we can't run at the Reseda Country Club anymore. Fuck. All right, where do we run? Well, this place is available. Okay, this place isn't available. Okay, somebody knows somebody that could get us in at the sports arena.
Yeah.
How much is it going to cost us? Free. Really? Okay. What about the Grand Olympic? How much? That if they would have let us keep running at the Reseda Country Club, we probably would have been there for a lot longer than we were.
Right. And man, that was a blessing in disguise leaving there then, because man, once we got to the sports arena, Was it as you being from the East Coast, you didn't grow up out here, but was that it was, I guess it's different from like if you were out in Madison Square Garden, whatever, but did that feel like a big deal? Did you at the time kind of know, okay, we're the sports arena? I mean, everybody in LA knew the Forum, of course, more so than the sports arena because the Lakers and all that, but knowing where you were, the LA sports arena, the original home of the LA Lakers, now the Clippers when we were talking to them before they moved to Staples Center. So the sports arena was still kind of this big deal. Did you know and feel that this was it in the history, WrestleMania's being there?
No, but I remember you were fucking coming on yourself because you would talk about WrestleMania. You would talk about all that.
Yeah.
Remember we did promos down there.
Yeah, we did.
Remember
promos. And I don't know if you remember, it was you, myself, Webb, and Kevin, the four of us in your car. We drove down there, and I was doing the whole Vince McMahon WrestleMania 7 promo, and you're like, "Do it, Kloss, do it, do the whole thing." And when we walked in there, the four of us, we went to survey it and all that. This is a funny story for you fans. We were going really quick. We were walking with the head of the Sports Arena Coliseum Commission. And halfway through, I was like, the fan in me was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, remember when WrestleMania 7 moved from the Coliseum, 100,000 people right here to the 16,000 Sports Arena, and they said it was because of security?" And I not even halfway through asking him, the guy, I'm like, "Now was that really because attendance, or was it this with the Persian Gulf War?" He goes, No, they couldn't sell tickets. That's why they came over here. They were lucky the Sports Arena was open that day. It's like, that's simple. We got that info, and they kayfabe that to this day. But we got that firsthand. But I digress. Going through the Sports Arena now, in your mind, is this a big step for what you want? Your vision, you want it to feel less indie, more like a major production. To me, the Sports Arena, of course, you couldn't get anywhere better really in LA. Of course, the Olympics arguably there, but I remember shows on the Olympic when we messed, and I don't want to take credit, but I remember telling the guy, "Hey, the lights, shine them onto the crowd opposite hard cam, keep these lights off." And for a few of those shows at the Olympic, when the crowd is lit up opposite hard cam, it looks like $1 million. Like for a while, we were looking grandioso there, the production wise, because we were getting an audience too. But when we first went to the Sports Arena, that was before the Olympic. Was that in your mind like, okay, now we look like an actual wrestling promotion, a major wrestling promotion?
No, because we were in this giant cavernous arena.
Yeah.
That, we had 800 people in. Fished around, you could see that it was this giant cavernous arena. The things that made me go, "We've arrived," is when we started getting name wrestlers.
Okay.
And that was when I felt we arrived. And so doing a show in a place that holds 25,000 people, and we can't put 25,000 people, just made me just kind of go, "Oh, dude, it feels so empty."
Yeah.
Like that's how I looked at it. It wasn't until, and it wasn't just bringing in name people. It was having name people on a regular basis, because anybody could bring some guy in for, $800
Right.
to work the local drool and sell a couple tickets. But it was getting that person and people going, "Oh, they're part of XPW," or Pro Wrestling Illustrated, when you opened it up and it showed the rankings.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, again, pre-internet, really.
Right.
And you would be like, and we'd all get that month's Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and we'd get it, and we'd look. And I remember I'd look at it and I'd be like, "Why the fuck aren't we in this, Kevin?" And he's like, "Well, fuck that." I go, "Why aren't we in the long strip that, that fucking matters, man?" Right. And I remember the first time we made the strip, and it was like XPW. And then it was like, White Trash Johnny Webb, fucking, Big Dick Dudley, and it would list name guys mixed in with Homeless Jimmy, Vic Grimes. It was like, yeah, that is we arrived. That we've arrived. 20 years ago, that was a big deal. 22 years ago, that was a big deal. It wasn't, playing in an empty fucking arena. And again, I still yeah, whatever. But if the place held 25,000, you know, it was just us playing in a big giant place.
We pulled it off though on television because everything was dark up top and you didn't know, and that's the way you do it in wrestling. And for a few of those shows, again, it looked like $1 million. And I get what you're saying, the talent. I feel like that was a big deal though. I feel like when we were on television and it was like, ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from the Los Angeles Sports Arena, XPW, coming for the Grand Olympic versus the Ventura Theater or the freaking Strongbow, like that was just a little touch that the audience kind of, okay, in the back of their head, I'm watching something. Oh, they're coming to you live from the LA Sports Arena. That I think helped a little bit. What you're saying probably was ultimately more of a reason to say we've arrived. But those I think kind of happened, like you said, accidentally. The Reseda Country Club, we would have been there. But going into and being in the sports arena in the Olympic, that I feel like it's
like
just,
I said, for me,
yeah.
The shows at the Palace.
Oh yeah, right.
You know, where you've got this, you know, and it's funny because now, you know, wrestling, the shows in the clubs, that's like the big thing. For me, I didn't like the club because it was a fucking club.
Right.
So I was like, this is bullshit. We need to be in an arena. But the Arrive thing of having Jonathan Davis,
yeah,
do the ring announcing or whatever the hell it was, where he opens the show, that is Arrived.
Yeah.
Kerry King, that is Arrived. So we were doing that when, you know, what, a couple years ago, what would you hear? Oh, Ronda Rousey showed up at a PWG show. This is man, the fuck out of here. We were having, at the time, Jonathan Davis was Korn. They were the biggest fucking rock band. And here he is in the middle of the Palace with his own song going, Are You Ready?
Yeah.
Saying, hey, get ready, guys. Here's the fucking lineup. So we were doing that shit before fucking, you know, David Arquette show. Big deal. We were, you know, we were putting that shit on the map before that. We don't get credit for it, but we were doing that. And people just kind of went, oh, whatever. Now, like I said, Ronda Rousey shows up for a PWG show before WWE, and it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, Jonathan Davis, funny story. He was nervous, kind of looking at his cue cards. I remember he came back, handed me the mic. And I was like, you're telling me? He was telling me, like, dude, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, you're telling me this? What do you mean? He goes, dude, those fans they're non-forgiving, man. You gotta really please them. Like, you know, and it was,
didn't everybody start yelling at him and shit?
Yeah, but just knowing Jonathan Davis is coming back telling us, dude, I don't know how you guys do it, man. Those fans are brutal, man. You know, it was like, wow, dude.
Bro, remember those three shows? So we had Glenn Danzig sitting in the balcony with, at the time, was Veronica Kane, who was Barrett Moore. She wasn't Veronica Kane yet, and we had her thrown out of the show. She's got a great story on that. She left a message when I got home on my machine about me being a piece of shit, and she fucking hated me, and then told me that I was a cocksucker, but I didn't suck cock. I fucking sucked. I licked the shaft. I wasn't good enough, and yeah, it was some funny shit. So you had Glenn Danzig at a show. You had Jonathan Davis at a show. You had Kerry King from Slayer at a show. You know, that was big stuff, man. That was stuff back then.
Huge. And the only other league in the world that was doing guest celebrities was WWF. That was it. You know, not even WCW or ECW was having or stuff in Japan, whatever that was big. That was it. And that was, I think we had, I want to get to this, but I think also some advantages we have. One big one was that we were in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That played a part, because if you're in LA and you're doing something and it gets eyeballs, that's, you know, you could be in Topeka, Kansas and do that. Who cares, dude? Who cares? You know, even like a bigger city like Seattle or Cincinnati or even San Diego, it's okay, but it didn't have that impact of LA. And then we created and started to catch this fan base, this local fan base that was really kind of started to like, wow, this is like, they feel like this is their own. And that was cool. I want to get into that in a sec.
Well, don't forget the music connection was because I brought in Lazie.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So
that's where the opener, the original opener came from. That's what the original TV opener was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all
so that was the connection to the music, was bringing in Josh. And it's so funny because it was like I was a mark. I was more of a mark for what he did than him being a mark for what he did. He was more of a mark for the porn and the wrestling.
Yeah.
So when I would go to his coffee shop, which I later found out he didn't own it. A guy named Coffee Ron owned the coffee shop. And actually, another fucking person also owned it, but suffice to say, I would go to that coffee shop and there'd be celebrities at the coffee shop. So there'd be like a Jacob Dylan would be hanging out at the coffee shop. Peter Green, who was Zed from Pulp Fiction. Remember? He was the cop that's raping Ving Rhames at the end.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So I would meet all of these people, and Josh didn't care. Remember, Josh quit Danzig to work for porn.
Yeah.
Remember, you know, I kind of saw his little thing that he did with you, and just like everybody does, they all downplay the porn, but Josh worked for the porn company. He came into that company, had to do their model releases through him. He was like my production manager of all the porn. That's what he did. He loved the porn. He loved the wrestling. He loved that more than the music. I remember he got a tryout to go to audition for Guns N' Roses. He went when Axl was reforming the group. He even went to Axl's house, and it was like the super secret thing. And he went and he auditioned and he hung out with them, and they wanted to, get to know him and that whole thing. And he was like, I don't want to do it because I would have to leave here. And I was just like,
wow.
Yeah. I liked having the musician friend. I liked having. So when he left all of that, it was like, well, fuck, dude. Now you're just. Mine sucks. You're my employee now that likes banging one of the contract girls. What the fuck is this? That's no fun.
Wow.
But
yeah. It was.
Josh was our connection to that world, and that was awesome.
Isn't that crazy? Because remember John Weber, the stepfather. He was doing the X show at the time, which was big show on FX, and it's like he came to the sports arena, and we all recognized him. It was just as big a show as the Man Show at the time, And we're like, holy shit, this guy's here. But he's telling myself and Rivera, oh, you guys are the XPW TV guys. Like, wait, you're on FX. And he kind of the same thing. He was on TV and doing all this stuff, but he was all focused on the wrestling, and to the point where he was the ring crew,
I forgot about him.
Yeah, and in the asylum and all that. And so it's amazing when we kind of witness stuff like that, where you never would have thought that would have been the case. Like Jonathan Davis, wow, I can't believe you guys are doing this. How do you do it? To Lazie, to the X Show, John Weber. That was a big show at the time, the X Show. Everyone knew that guy when he came into the sports arena, and he was marking out for us, you know? And so anyway, but it also kind of puts it in perspective where we were at, the eyeballs that were on us. And then, Rob, during that time was when you now transitioned and you became, talk a little bit about becoming Rob Black, the character. And Rob Black, you become a character, CEO. What's the difference? Becoming the character, how was that? And what's the difference between Rob Black, the person, and the character?
I don't know if there is a big, I don't know if there's a big difference.
Yeah.
Because I think Rob Black, the character, consumes so much of my life. There's all that I always have to kind of be on. So I don't think anybody really 100%, you know, I mean, you've been around me in a private setting. I think the Rob Black character is still Rob Zakari in a private setting. I'm still very loud, and I'm still, ball busting, and like let's put it this way. Malicki, I did a bit on my show where I kind of busted his balls, and he texted me and got a little sensitive about it. And then I just hit him back, and I was like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. A, you're doing a great job and you're kicking ass, but this is balls, and I'm going to, be that person. So I don't think there's a distinction. It's just, I think on TV, I'm kind of amped up a little bit more, but I think for the most part, I am that same person.
Yeah, and I want to. That's, speaking of. By the way, shout out to Eric Malikian. He's kind of helping out with this new XPW, and shout out to him. Doing a lot, actually, not a little, a lot. But
yeah, I was gonna say he's doing a lot.
Yeah, but it's funny you mentioned when I talked to stuff.
I'm being serious. I'm
yeah, I know. Yeah.
I mean, he's doing shit that Kleinrock did, and he's right in that, doing a lot of the same shit that Kevin would do. A lot of that grunty. I got the guardrails, and I got this, and I'm on the phone with the lighting guy, or I'm on the phone with that guy. That was all stuff that Kevin did.
Yeah.
He did a lot of that kind of, 17 times, that type of shit.
So Rob, that's interesting, because when I asked John Weber's stepfather on the show, what's the legacy of XPW? He talked a lot about it, but he said, you specifically, we had a guy, Rob Black, who Vince McMahon, the heel, was the guy Vince kind of playing the part of the heel. Eric Bischoff played the part of the heel. Paul Heyman played the part. Whereas Rob, it was like, that's more so, that's just who he is. And that's part of the legacy of XPW, was it was more real than you would think, even, in many ways. I don't know if you agree with that. Did you enjoy going out there being a performer? Did you enjoy it? Was it just part of the job?
Yeah, I mean, being out there was cool. I think being on the TV was more, that was more what I enjoy, being part of the skits, creating that, and getting a lot of the raw energy from that. I'll go back and I'll watch some of the old XPW TV, and just, I mean, the majority of the stuff, I shouldn't even say the majority, every skit bit wasn't, we had no idea what we were going to say.
Mhm.
We had a general idea.
Right.
So it was, all right, Kevin, you're going to come in my office and we're going to talk about Supreme wanting a title shot. That's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so go out there, and then I go, okay. I just roll with it. Just roll with it. And then he would go out there, and I'd maybe be on the phone. And then I'd be like that, and all of a sudden the door would knock, and then he would just walk in and go out, do what you're supposed to do, and knock. Go, now, go. I mean, that was all improvised, and you would get that, and then I get back out. Yeah, don't worry, it was just Klein Rock. All right, so now when I'm going about, okay, yes, you could come in now. Yeah, okay, hold on, and then he'd stand in front. All right, hold on. Okay, I'll see you later. Yes, Kevin, what can I do for you? Well, I got it the way off. Oh, well, all of that stuff was just, and it was just fodder to eventually get to, why does Supreme want a fuck him? He's not getting it. All right, now get the fuck out of my office.
Yeah.
Angel, what are you doing? And it was like him bent over with with his G-string out.
Yeah.
We had no idea we were doing it. It was all me kind of commanding the room and going, all right, everybody just kind of roll with it, and then we'll just kind of go with it.
Which I'll say, Rob, I always appreciated the fact that
because when I go back and I look at some of that stuff, it was good.
Yeah.
I mean, it was funny stuff.
Yeah.
It was now, if you weren't into that humor, then of course you thought it was crass and it was bathroom. But a young kid who's got his own wrestling company out here. Oh, you know him, Isaac.
Yeah, VXS.
VXS. So he would describe it as, South Park. It was that vibe. It was that kind of, fart jokes and just stupid shit that was entertaining for that group. And when people say to me, well, why do you think that would be funny now? Times have changed. And I would go, because unless everybody that used to watch us is fucking dead, those people are now in their, late 30s, early 40s. You're going to tell me that they've all now evolved to the point where they're like, yes, that's funny. Bullshit. Those people are still around. There's still people that like that kind of silly,
I remember one of the XPW, it was myself and Rivera, and we were introducing the Major Gun skit. And you gave us the freedom, dude. I was like, oh, hang on. And I got that paper towel spindle, put it in my pants. And it was just like, that's the shit we would do, man. But none of that, you're right. None of that was planned. It was all thinking like that, just like guys, just having fun, guy humor, or whatever you want to call it. Having fun with that. Three Stooges humor with a little X-ratedness added to it,
Yeah.
And you did give us the freedom. I will say this, myself and Rivera, really, man, we just had to call the concept what you would have a concept for us. The story we're telling, but you would, guys, fill in the blanks, and we did. and no one in our ear. As long as we got the story across, you were fine with all that, which was part of what XPW was about. It was that rawness, that realness, and it was in a lot of respects.
Well, I mean, it wasn't like we scripted me and Pat singing together, me and Larry Rivera singing together. It was Pat, you know how to play bass?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm in a band. Oh really? Oh yeah. And then, however many months, it's like, hey, let's do something where we do like Ebony and Ivory, and or we do Jackson 5, and we'll do it on the show, or what, and we just did it. I mean, it was like,
and Rob, I gotta tell you, you think you guys were doing Ebony and Ivory. You remember when you guys were singing, I was doing Ebony and Ivory with crack in the back room, but we won't get into that. That was during that time. But still, I think isn't that funny? Like, I think that's the only time in history where the story was that I got raped. And I love how, like, in the world of wrestling, the cops weren't called. Nothing happened. It was just back to business. Oh, because he's a heel, I'm a face. Oh, yeah, that explains it. Okay, back to this world of XPW.
Exactly. That was our world. When Smiley transitioned into Ultraviolent, it was like he got kidnapped and then he got tortured.
Good stuff. Good stuff, dude.
And yeah, nobody called the police.
Yeah. We just got to deal with it now in the wrestling ring, right?
Yeah, you got to deal with it in the wrestling ring. So, or when Lizzie was almost raped in our house.
Yeah, no cops, no investigation, nothing.
No cops were called. We just had to go in and settle business from this home invasion with an attempted rape. A lot of rape themes.
Yeah, a lot of rape. Yeah, that's true, man.
There's a lot of rape. There was just a lot of rape going on, or attempted rape.
Did you
now? People are like, wow, they thought. I think I even saw once on Twitter where somebody commented and was like, I saw an old clip of XPW where they glamorized rape. Wow, they're trash. I was like, well, again, only in the year 2022 so here's the funny line, Chris, that I get amused. So it's like, okay, in 2022, wrestling is fake. There's no kayfabe. And if you try to make it seem fake, or you try to carry out a storyline, you're a fucking idiot, because us wrestling fans all know it's fake.
Mm-hmm.
But then these same wrestling, you tried to do a rape angle, and it's like, yeah, but
good point.
But it was fake. Yeah, but
good point.
We just said that wrestling is fake, so what's the problem? We're trying to, but you tried to.
It's like, hey, Breaking Bad 100% glamorized drugs and meth. They glamorized it. They completely glamorized it, but it was wonderful. It was maybe my favorite show of all time, possibly, but it was great entertainment. They totally glamorized the world of drugs and meth specifically, dude. So
murder. There's just so much. Again, our business is the only business that you are now not allowed to make any type of storyline that is, I don't even want to say edgy, but like checks off all these boxes. So if you go, all right, we're going to make these characters gangster, a certain population of the wrestling fan that goes, oh, typical. You're using this ethnic group and you're making them gangsters, sure. And it's like, oh, but there are fucking gangster movies that Hollywood produces on a regular basis. How is that any different? Well, because that's a movie. This is pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And okay, so what are you saying?
You know,
what are you? It's fucking fake. You're the one that says it's fake.
And,
so if you're saying it's fake, why can't we do a storyline that is no different than Hollywood doing a storyline? If you fake,
right?
Yes, but.
And Rob, the ironic part about that is wrestling was kind of the last one that was able to do it. Because like in the 90s, when things started getting politically correct and all that, you still had Kamala beating his belly and all that stuff. Like wrestling actually was the entity that had the green light to keep doing that, while everything else, because it was like the world didn't want to tell wrestling to stop doing it because they didn't want to look stupid thinking that wrestling was real. So wrestling kept being able to do this stuff. Now it's the exact opposite. Wrestling's the last one to be able to do this. But if you remember, like when all this stuff was changing in Hollywood or whatever, when we got to be PC now, wrestling still, Papa Shango, Kamala, and all this stuff was still going on because the world didn't want to look stupid saying, hey, we got to monitor wrestling. You want to monitor wrestling? Don't you know it's fake? Yeah, I know it's fake. Never mind. I'm just kidding. And wrestling kind of kept doing that. You're right. Total opposite now. Wrestling can't get away with anything.
But you know what, though, Chris? You say not. We didn't start, and not just wrestling, but society in general. We didn't start going through this PC, like you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed. This has just been happening in the past 8 or 9. Started in the second term of Obama. Mm-hmm. So Obama became president in what? 2012.
At 8 and 12, yeah.
So 12, 13, 14, it wasn't until the second term that all of a sudden it was like, hey, you're not allowed to use the R word. Right. And you're like, what's the R word? You know, retard.
Right.
That's a bad word? Yeah, you can't say that. They have to be referred to as mentally talented. It wasn't until the Obama second term, and then it went on steroids when Trump became president. Because then it was a way to fucking peel off voters. And it was a way to say, well, if you support Trump or you support anything like this, you are now a Nazi. You are now a white supremacist. Yeah. Everything became white supremacist or a Nazi. Everything became some weird thing. Nazi is a strong word. Racist is a strong word. And it was always this was being a Nazi, being racist, but then it became, oh, remember when Triple H wore blackface? No, I remember when Triple H made fun of The Rock. Yeah, that's blackface. That's racist. No, I think it was him making fun of The Rock. That's racist. Okay. All right, I guess that's the case. But we never looked at being racist. We didn't look at that as being American History X and they think they're superior than the black man and they should. We just looked at it as DX making fun of The Rock. That was it. There was nothing to it other than them making fun of The Rock.
Yeah.
No different than them making fun of Vince McMahon when they would all dress up. So, you know, society changed to something that's kind of weird, where something that is racist that you never would have thought was racist. Well, okay, and now you just kind of go, okay,
Yeah, and then like for example, a comedian like Don Rickles, one of my favorites. He's no way. If you look at any of his shtick, you would think he's in the Ku Klux Klan now. Then, you know, yeah.
Or, well, Kloss, what about Andrew
Well, yeah,
Dice Clay? Well, yeah, that fat pig. You can't refer to a woman as a fat pig.
right. No,
You know, there's you can't say that. You can't. And it's just kind of like, oh, okay.
yeah. Even in the world of entertainment now, we can't do. There's so many borders up now, where you can't just let. And that I feel like that hurts the artist. That hurts the free flow of I'm going to do all this. Like now, your character in whatever role you're playing, your character has the same barriers as the real life you have now. So I can't be this character and expand myself. Nope, it's the real life barriers is now in this play, whatever you're doing.
So,
And that I think that's a good point, and it is hurting the arts, I think, big time. Let me ask you this, Rob. Moving on, you talked about bringing the guys in and your relationship with Shane Douglas, because that was when he first came in. That was a big deal. And going back to what you said, breaking the big thing back then was going off script. And like that's the whole foundation of when he came in, being on the phone with Eric Bischoff and all that. Whoa, is this going off script? Is this real? That was the impact. And it was a big deal to have a guy like Shane Douglas in a company that wasn't ECW, WCW, and we were on television at that time. Can you talk a little bit about that when he came in, your relationship with him and what that meant for XPW?
well, I always talk about that kind of being a pivotal time, because it was during the time when him and Benoit and Malenko, all the little guys were over in BCB, and they all basically staged a revolt. That was the time. And so Shane just re-signed his contract. So remember, he had done that show where it was him, Candido, and Sabu. It was all of them in the sports arena.
Well, okay, yeah.
Remember that?
E-Day, I believe. Yeah.
Come back to us for a little bit of time after that. It was this whole kind of WCW thing. So when he came to that show, it was basically to feel out if this was what he wanted to was going to do.
Yeah.
And indeed, the original plan was Candido wins the belt, Shane's music hits, and then the t-shirt gets thrown out there, and it leaves everybody thinking that Shane Douglas is gonna sign with us.
Yeah.
And I remember Candido, that was the game. So that was the game plan. And I remember me and Candido at one point talking, and I was like, that's cool. I was like, but do you think you could get him to fucking walk out there? And the big debate was him walking out there, thumbing his nose at
WCW.
At WCW. So we didn't know he was going to walk out there. That was kayfabe between all of us. Yeah. So when the music hits and the lights are off, I didn't know he was walking out there. And all of a sudden, them lights come on, and there he is standing out there. And I just remember we were all fucking just popping hard in the headset. We were like, oh, I was like, oh my God, Shane Douglas is out there. And then he cut that promo. And that was real.
Yeah.
That was a real fucking promo. And it was at Kevin Sullivan. I think Jim Hurd. I think it was Hurd and Kevin Sullivan. And from there, he went back to WCW.
Right.
And he didn't come back for a while.
Yeah.
He didn't come back for a while. They all got what they wanted. Kevin Sullivan got fired. They had the whole regime change. And then they all got their releases, but Shane stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, Benoit
Yep.
and Malenko, they all left.
Yep.
Guerrero.
Guerrero.
Obviously, once WWE didn't want Shane, and he was like a man on his own island, they eventually then got rid of him. And then he came to us.
Yeah.
But it didn't all happen all at once. There was a bigger, it was a bigger time gap. Just like, just like Shane's time gap when he likes to tell whoever will listen that he left us because we messed up a TV episode that went to, Pittsburgh, and then he called up and was, dude, your fucking time gap is off, because the last show we ever did was Battle at the Berg.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That was he was there. You're right. It was all about him.
What do you mean he was there? It was in his backyard in Beaver fucking Creek at the Dome.
It was all about him, really, that show. In many ways.
And then I got busted.
Yeah.
And that was it.
So
he makes it sound like he left us.
Yeah.
And then XPW went on for, years and years later.
No.
And he left us, and we were fuck ups. It's like, dude, the fuck out of here, you fucking
the
moron.
timeline, any XPW fan will show you the timeline is off. When Shane came in, Rob, and we were all, we knew this was the direction. Did you feel it like at that time? What did you have to do to balance the league out? Because when Shane came in, it was a big deal. But I remember kind of feeling like the homegrown talent was a little nervous at that time, right? And now, how do you balance it out? And can you give, like, who of the homegrown SoCal guys did you like, okay, these guys belong here. I want to do something with them, and I want to incorporate them with these stars coming in that we do need after all at the end of the day.
Yeah, but Chris, if you listen, go through the timeline. There wasn't this, again, Shane didn't come in and bring 35 fucking people in, and then homegrown talent got pushed away.
No.
Look at the timeline. Was like from day one, we always started with name talent.
Yeah.
It was a different level of name talent, but we started with Big Dick. We always had 3 or 4 name talent on the roster. So some people got moved out, some people got moved in, but the core group of guys were still the central.
Yeah.
Our core group never, ever took a back seat to fucking to name talent. The company still was still revolved around Supreme, White Trash Johnny Webb, fucking Angel, Crack, Chaos, Smiley. You can't get more fucking those guys were there when we brought in New Jack. Vic Grimes to me is homegrown.
Yeah.
Even though he was, WWE, but Vic, Pogo the Clown, you gonna tell me Pogo wasn't fucking homegrown?
Yeah, right. Oh yeah. Well, the character for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Pogo the Clown, let's see, wasn't fucking homegrown?
Pogo, you said?
No, Steve Rosano.
Oh yeah, all of them. Yeah, I felt that too, because at the end of the day, people knew the other guys. They didn't necessarily know Steve Rosano and Pogo, until XPW.
So those guys were there Joey was there from day one. Joey and them were not there for, I think, the last show because they created a ruckus on the airplane back from the last Philly show.
Who created the ruckus?
Joey and Veronica and Smiley.
Right, yeah.
And that was it. And I think I got rid of them. We all had a big falling out over that.
Yeah,
but it was right towards the end.
Yeah, right towards the end. And then you had to do what you had to do. So Rob, speaking of that, going into the sports arena, the Olympic, going back to that, and then now getting these named guys. Okay, but before we went into the Olympic, talk a little bit about Heatwave, because that was when they came into LA. Everyone knows they weren't doing anything on the West Coast. Maybe a little bit into the Midwest, not really, but they were on the East Coast. Then they came into Heatwave.
Look at this
they came
hair.
into Heatwave. Yeah, we got to get those dreads back. We got to get the dreadlocks back. But
I know.
Let's talk a little bit about Heatwave and what was your part? What did you want to happen? And what did that all mean to you after it happened? And your promo after that. But Heatwave.
Well, again, all the bullshit that talk about that incident that had no idea what it was about. I think, I didn't want to speak ill of the dead, but I think even New Jack, oh yeah, Rob did. Yeah, he was scared to be there. I mean, the game plan was never for me to ever be there. It was never for anybody to get into a fucking brawl. No. I mean, all of that stuff was never on the docket. And obviously, none of that would have happened if I even if I walked into the door on that show. You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine if I, Rob Black, would have walked through the door when that show started. That wouldn't have lasted until fucking into the end of the show. I mean, I would have been removed. We all would have been removed before, because nobody would have stopped chanting me, that Rob Black, fucking, I mean, Kevin got outed by what's his name, the security guy that wound up working for us.
Atlas, yeah.
Atlas guys.
Ronnie.
I mean, bro, it was what it was. That what happened wasn't supposed to happen. It wound up happening.
But I think we capitalized on it, and then you took it into the story, and then you did that promo, and that got a lot of eyeballs. People still talk about it.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
I almost feel like that has been done. It's like been done to death.
Right, but ours was real. They staged so many of those, and people love to see these staged invasions. But when it happened for real, oh, that was messed up. You guys should have done that. Wait a minute. Why do you like these staged events then, if you don't want to see it for real? What was your reaction, Rob, when you first found out and saw that ECW was no more? We were still going.
When ECW was no more, what was my reaction?
Yeah, we were still doing stuff with momentum.
I mean, I was happy, I guess you could say. I was like, fuck you. We lasted we outlasted you. And I it's funny, I think somebody reminded me on my show that I had even said back then that I'll be around. XPW will be around. ECW is done and buried. And somebody reminded me, and they're like, and look at you now, 20 years later. And I even seen somebody go, they said, oh yeah, they saw one of our ads recently, and they said, oh, a poor man's version of ECW. And I kind of laughed and went, not really, because ECW is no more. We're still here. So I guess the poor man's version is the only fucking version is dead and gone.
Let me ask you, when we went into the Grand Olympic, and there are a couple moments at the Olympic that that live in infamy a little bit, and that was Supreme getting on fire, Rapture, and then of course Free Fall, the Scaffold match. Were you nervous going into those, or after the aftermath of those? Like, that was the element of danger though with XPW. What was that like with the Scaffold and man, leading up to that and after it happened, and Supreme getting lit on fire?
Well, the Supreme being lit on fire, that wasn't supposed to happen. Smiling
Right.
them fucked up. They went out and they got charcoal fluid instead of lighter fluid.
And they didn't let it burn long enough before they put them through it. They
So
didn't let it
they
burn
went,
enough.
and that's what made it not light. And then when they finally got it lit and Supreme hit it, it went up like a bomb. So they were stupid. I guess ultimately, I should have checked it, but go figure. And the Scaffold match, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if it was that I climbed up on. One of those, rather, I think it was that I climbed up there. And I thought to myself, this is fucking high. Like, really fucking high.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went, well, you know what? They know what they're doing. So, hey, fucking, what do I know?
Yeah.
But I do remember going up there, and it was high.
Oh.
And it was kind of wobbly,
Yeah, it was kind of wobbly. It was nervous. It was nervous the whole show. We were like, oh my gosh, man. The fans too, like, is this thing secure? Let me ask you this, Rob, and we'll close it out. But I want to talk about XPW coming up, and you are.
Is it wobbly? It was wobbly.
It was, man. So XPW coming back. I want to talk about. Before I do that though. When did you realize, Rob, toward the end, that the government and all this
stuff? Who writes all? Does George Hermosa write these questions?
Yeah, it's okay.
Because you're reading them off of a fucking paper.
Well, I gotta write them. He's got to write them, but I gotta remember them. I don't want to forget anything. But when
I want you to ask him. I want you to ask him how big his balls are. How big are his fucking balls?
Did you want me to ask him, George? He says yes. He said, "Wants you to ask."
But now, wait a minute. You're looking to the left, but then sometimes you look to the right.
I don't know what to tell you, man. It's a big office here, I guess.
It's not a big office.
But let me ask you, Rob. Okay, we'll maybe for another time we could save the other ones, but let me ask you this.
And maybe I'll give you a part two. This wasn't that bad.
Well, right. We appreciate it if you do. But talk to me a little bit.
Only if George goes on camera.
Oh, that's the request. Okay. So I got some more questions, but
internet connection.
Yeah, it's bad, man. Hopefully next time too we'll iron that out. But talk a little bit about XPW coming back, because the show was in Rochester, Rebirth, and really kind of surprised a lot of people. But now I think people are more excited. I would say that it's coming back to LA. It's going to be, and we'll talk about it here. It's going to be on Sunday, April 9th at the Derby Room in Pomona, California at the Fairplex. And that's going to be the return to California, but it's also going to be the return of the King of the Deathmatch tournament, which is so synonymous with XPW. And are we gonna see some Rob Black in the ring, the old CEO Rob Black style stuff? And what can we expect from this new version of XPW, this new version of XPW in relation to comparing it to the old one, but it's also its new thing, and how this death match is going to be in relation to the old style of XPW death matches.
All right. First off, listen to me. First off, why did it surprise everybody?
I don't know. I mean, people didn't see it coming.
But why?
Because it's been gone for so long. One.
Okay, but but why though? That's like, so why? Why? At the end of the day, you and Kleinrock and Mike had no business being involved. You guys tried to resurrect it 2 different times. So why would it be surprising for the guy that created it, the guy that blood fucking went to prison? I mean, everything involving XPW that would go, all right, I'm going to do it again. As you look over at George Hermosa.
Well, I mean, you're right. You were missed for sure. It was missed, and whatever you want to call it, XPW 2.0, with the Cold Day in Hell and the 10-year reunion. But that we get into next time. Big Vision Entertainment, of course, had the rights, and we maybe get into the copyright, the trademark stuff that was going on at the time and going on now. But you getting back into it, I guess it also surprised a lot of people because everybody was under the impression that it was owned by Big Vision. So seeing you back in charge, it was oh, how did that happen? And it's coming back. And the original tagline, which I think is kind of important now for this relaunch, was "You can't cancel what was canceled." That is speaking of today, like we were talking about. Maybe people are hungry to see some stuff that pushes the envelope because we're so restricted now with entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what can we expect, Rob, on April 9th at the Derby Room in Pomona for XPW California? We already saw Rebirth, and that was, I don't know, what do you say? That was like the kind of the launching pad. Now we're here. Okay, now we're gonna take it to the next level. No.
I think, and I've explained this kind of a bunch of times, Rebirth was the first thing I've done in, 20 years, however long. And I needed to feel in control. So I needed to kind of get back on that horse. And I needed to be able to show talent, a lot of the newer kids, that things that they might have heard or things of that nature just aren't true. And so I needed to do a show. I needed to have good wrestling. I couldn't have it be some mud show, some fucking IWA Deep South weird fucking neo-Nazi fucking crazy goofy shit. I needed people that go, okay, interesting. There was no blood. There was no boobs. There was nothing offensive. There was wrestling. And it equated to that you would see at MLW or, countless other, not mud show wrestling, but, the MLW type of things. All right. And then those wrestlers go out, and when somebody goes, "Oh, what was it like working for Rob Black?" and they go, "It was cool." Oh, you didn't. There wasn't 10 pounds of blow and hookers, and you didn't. Well, you weren't forced to take unprotected chair shots. No, it was a pretty good experience, and got paid and went home. Cool. I needed that. And I needed to kind of be back in the mix with the producer that I got that's doing the shows. I needed to see how the streaming worked. I needed to see how Fight worked. All of that stuff, I needed to have that practice run, so to speak. I needed to go, okay, I remember how to do this. I remember how to put on a show. I remember how to book this. And it wasn't, oh, Rob Black just sits in his office, plays with his balls, while Kevin Kleinrock and XYZ run out there and do all of this. And he just sits there and does fucking drugs and bangs hookers and sits in his bathrobe. I needed to fucking, be back out there where it was like, oh, I guess, yeah, all of those myths and all of the just bullshit folklore. So now it's like, okay, we did this once. Now we're going to do it on our terms. And it's a little more back to the basics. And Kris, if you saw, we have the 2 TV episodes out. I had to produce that TV without the infrastructure of what we had in LA. I had to produce that TV without the Kleinrocks and without the Webs and without. So it was like, okay, I got to get a new bag on me. And again, all of that stuff takes time. Yeah. And I didn't want to come out with the first show in LA and kind of fuck up or have a fucking blood fest and kind of people go, yeah, that's what I expected. I needed people to go, okay, great. We had this tournament. We had all this wrestling. Where's the blood?
Yeah.
Where's the porn stars? Where's the boobs? Where's the... Okay, give you that. Now you want some blood? We'll give you some blood. Mm-hmm. You want some fucking boobs? We'll give you some boobs. What kind of boobs? Well, how about Jasmine? Oh, you're going to have the original XPW girl. Okay. How about Veronica? Oh, okay. How about Jessica Darlin? Oh, okay. And then we have some new boobs, some younger boobs, Oh, okay. Well, you didn't have any originals except for Kris Kloss and Monchi. Oh, you're going to have Pogo the Clown. Oh, Vic Grimes is coming. Oh, my. So, it was done for a purpose. It wasn't a fluke of what we did. And it was done on purpose.
You almost have to start there so you can go only up from there. And like you said, I mean the originals, but then like this is going to be a 16-man deathmatch tournament. Crown the new king of the deathmatch. Necro Butcher, Masada, Schlack, Hoodfoot, Matt Tremont, Big F and Joe, Sage Sin Supreme, Odin Viet, Pagano, Sledge, Vincent, like the list goes on. Dirty, Ronald McDonald, Lucky 13. I don't want to leave anybody out. Eric, Ryan, Juicy Fanu. Now you were going to have a lot of new names coming in, of course, obviously. This is going to be a tournament, and if it's going to be a tournament, we got to have new names if they're going to go balls out, right? So, without giving too much away, April 9th, Sunday in Pomona. What can we expect with that tournament, the deathmatch, for those XPW fans that remember that part of XPW?
Well, let's put it this way, for any old XPW fans that haven't kept up on deathmatch wrestling, they're gonna shit themselves because deathmatch wrestling that's today is not what the match years ago, and not just for the pure brutality, but there's no spots, there's no wrestling, there is no, all right, we're gonna build to this spot with light tubes. The bell rings and they just start stabbing each other and they just start fucking killing each other. So the brutality is something that an older fan, if they haven't stayed up on deathmatch wrestling, is going to shock them. But first, what's going to shock the new deathmatch fans is the fact that I'm going to bring back the old school style of the deathmatch. So we've got 15 matches. The first round of matches aren't going to be gusset plates, fucking razor blades. It's going to build to it. So those first rounds are going to be, tables, chairs, thumbtacks.
Right.
The second round, okay, some light tubes, maybe a little glass. Those finals will be glass, machetes that, you get. So that way, those beginning matches, those new fans that are like, yeah, we can't wait, they're going to be sitting on the edge of their seat going, dude, they're doing a fucking headlock. Yeah. What the fuck is going on?
Right.
But when they finally get that spot, they're going to be like, yeah. And I'm going to retrain those fans to go, all right, when we go to an XPW death than the other death matches, we're not going to see that shit in the beginning. Right. They're going to build to it. They're not going to have a gusset plate on a board laying in the middle of the ring. They're going to have it hanging on a rope from the ceiling, and you got to get on a ladder to go up and get the gusset plate to then beat the fuck out of the guy with it. So now you get that ladder element of them two doing spots off the ladder to get that gusset plate. But once that guy gets that gusset plate, it's on. You're not going to take a gusset plate, have your arms split open, and then, have 10 more minutes of the fucking match to the point where now you're just watching a horror show.
Yeah, right. Well, Rob, I want to just remind everybody, because this is in the news now, and it is in the wrestling news. It's Sunday, April 9th, and it's going to be California, the Derby Room in Pomona, California, at the Pomona Fairplex. Now, the website is thexpwwrestling.com. All social media is at the XPW Wrestling, and you can go to tix.com. Saturday, April 9th. I'm sorry, not Sunday. Saturday night, April 9th, Pomona. And those are the websites. That's the social media. You can also go to tix.com. Doors open at 5 p.m., bell time 7 p.m. Remaining tickets start at $40, go up to $85. So it's going to be very interesting, Rob, to see not only XPW back, but like you said, it was laid out already, and now it's coming back. The death match is coming back to LA, the fan base here. There are a lot of people that were upset that it was in Rochester, not LA at first. So now they're going to get that. And anything else you want to say about that before we close out?
That the fan base was upset?
Well, there are a lot of people who say, hey, XPW was LA. Why is it starting out in Rochester? Well, now, in a way, it's poetic for them, because now the show that will be in LA, we're going to have a lot more freedom. The New York State Athletic Commission is a serious thing. So now we're going to have the freedom to do all this stuff. But what I'm saying is the fan base out here is hungry
Listen,
for it.
And listen, if the fans don't turn up in droves, then it's like, well, what were you all bitching about?
Yeah, that's true.
What were you all bitching about?
Yeah.
What are you gonna say? Oh, well, you weren't in the Valley. You went to Pomona. Listen, it's still considered fucking SoCal. You're still in the Los Angeles County. You're still,
I don't think people are going to complain because remember, we went to Pico Rivera, we went downtown, went to the Valley, and of course Bakersfield, Ventura. We were Southern California, so I don't think that's a problem to most people at all.
and
right.
Pico Rivera, I think, is the same distance to fucking Pomona.
Yeah, pretty much for where we were at. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rob, I mean, we're going to see you April 9th, Saturday night, April 9th. 2022, XPW returns to Southern California with California. And again, go to thexpwwrestling.com, all social media at the XPW Wrestling, tix.com. Saturday night, April the 9th, XPW presents California from the Derby Room in Pomona. And anything else you want to say about that before we see you on that night?
And then for part 2, we'll do it to plug the show on the on what is it, the 20, I think it's
the
25th will be the next show.
I guess we can't, we're giving up our wrestling chatter kayfabe here. I guess that's
yeah
Well, Rob, any shout outs, anything you want to say, any plugs other than the show before we sign off here?
A big shout out to Kat Martini, who's upstairs.
My broadcast partner, yes.
Your broadcast partner is I might even put her at the broadcast booth with you to, I don't know, say stupid shit.
All right, man. Well, hey, I'm looking forward to it. Saturday night, April 9th.
Could be Renee. Maybe she could be Renee Paquette.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Only time will tell, fans, if you're going to see that or not. But yeah, okay, Rob. Hey, thank you for doing the show, and I'm going to see you on the 9th.
Look at my hair, bro.
I was trying not to. What's going on?
Let me ask you: should I keep the blonde or should I go back and dye it back to black?
Fans, in the comment section, let Rob know the answer to that question, please. CEO XPW. Whoa. CEO XPW Rob Black.
Thank you. You know who I kind of look like? Do you remember Heat with De Niro?
Yeah.
Okay. Remember Wayne Grove?
Yes.
Remember he's Wayne Grove, and he kills the hooker, the girl, and then he was part of their gang, and then he and that's who De Niro goes to kill at the end. Remember that or no? Am I just talking?
Right. Yeah.
I look like Wayne Grove.
Well, fans, leave in the comments. Should Rob Black bring the dreads back? Should he cut it off, chop it off, or keep the blonde? And maybe he'll answer that question with his appearance at California. But thank you, Rob, for joining us. We've been wanting you to come on the show for a while now, so appreciate it. And anything else before we sign off?
Let's plug George.
He don't like that. You don't like that.
What's his name? George Hermosa?
Like Hermosa Beach, man. Yeah, George Hermosa.
Like George Hermosa.
He's gonna love all this, but yes, exactly. Other than George Hermosa, any shout outs to anybody else, Rob?
George Hermosa, Kat Martini,
Dildo Dude,
all the how's that? The suffering Ukrainians.
Oh wow! Okay, all right.
Right. Big shout out to the suffering Ukrainians. Ethiopians, the starving children of Ethiopia.
Wow.
Let's get a shout out to them. Those dogs that are in the Sarah McLachlan commercial, the sad commercial, and the dogs are in the cages.
Well, shout out to them. Yeah.
They
need a bone. Yeah, throw them a bone for sure.
I think. Oh, the Shriners commercial, and there's that little sick guy. He seems kind of like a dwarf.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Right, that guy, and he's like Shriners, and him. I think that's it. Those are big shout outs. I feel for them, and I'm fucking praying for them.
Rob Black, thank you very much. We will see you. I will see you Saturday night, April the 9th in Pomona for XPW's California. It should be a hell of a show with the King of the Deathmatch tournament returning to XPW, returning to LA, Southern California. It's going to be wild. It's going to be unpredictable. And it's going to be very interesting how this all unfolds. Thank you, man.
Hey, Chris, it's always a joy to talk to you.
See that?
It's always a joy.
And you too, Rob Black. Thank you, sir.
And it's always a joy to talk to George.
All right. George Hermosa. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. This has been Xtreme Memories.
Veronica Kane, I don't think is gonna do the show, man.
Well, we gotta wrap up with the time anyway, regardless, and we want to save you for a part 2 anyway. So I don't want to get to the rest of the questions, but we're gonna talk all about that. We're gonna talk about you, the government, when you found out about all that stuff and everything leading into the end of XPW on part 2. Fans, join us next time on Xtreme Memories, and we'll see you Saturday night, April the 9th in Pomona for XPW's California. For Rob Black, this is Kris Kloss saying adios. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for watching Xtreme Memories, hosted by Kris Kloss. He's dropping new episodes every month on the 15th and 30th. You can be the first to tune in by subscribing to the Wrestling Chatter channel right here on YouTube. See you next time.